Great.
So we are recording and we are ready to go. Welcome once again to another conversation on the Queer Tribe. And my name is Donny.
And I'm Kirk.
And we are delighted to have you back again. And we're even more delighted to have our guest today, Nicolas. How do I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Reveles.
Reveles. Oh, Hispanic name. Oh, good. I love it.
But, oh, yeah, absolutely. Mi abuelo nació en Zacatecas, Mexico.
Oh, qué bueno, qué alegría. Qué gusto
So, yeah, I'm a Latino, but I take more after my mom, who's French-Canadian. So.
Yes. Oh, I love, what a combination.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm a border baby, baby.
We love the border. Anyway, we're delighted to have Nic with us today, and I'll tell you a little about Nic, and you're going to be so fascinated with learning about Nic.
Oh, God.
Nic is best known as a pianist, a composer, an opera coach, and a lecturer. He recently received certification as a somatic sex educator and sexological body worker, and has established a studio for his practice in San Diego, California. So if you're heading down that way, he is a California native and has been a practicing musician his entire life. Wow. So welcome, Nic.
That was thank you, and thank you very much for not going into the weeds.
Weeds.
That's a very long bio, and it makes me feel really old.
Yes. Well, I think those are very juicy details.
Yeah, the highlight is in the first paragraph.
Yes.
So there we go. And you get to fill in the rest now. So
yes.
All right.
So we're so glad to have you with us, and knowing little bits about your journey. This is exciting to me, just to hear some of the missing pieces, or the missing threads, as we call it. To your journey. So that's actually our first question of the three. So the three again are, tell us about your spiritual journey, your awakenings, kind of what brought you on this path that you're on right now. And then two is about the Queer Tribe itself, and do you believe we are part of Queer Tribe? And if so, talk about that a little bit. And then a vision, and then we'll ask some questions, opening up the lines for questions as well. So all right. So with that thread, let's go with the first question, which is, tell us about, Nic, your spiritual journey, times that awakened you, especially stories that are relevant, that feel relevant to being a queer man on a spiritual path.
Here's a story, and I will never forget it. I'm 4.5, 5 years old. My grandfather, mi abuelo, was a painter and an artist who escaped the administration of Porfirio Diaz in Mexico in 1906 and came to Hollywood and worked in theater as a set painter and in movies. So art ran in the family. And my father, his son, had a whole slew of art books that I loved to look at. I was attracted by the color. I was attracted by the bodies. And there was one book, Drawing the Human Figure by Frederick Loomis. I will never forget the title of the book. And I was, I would take that book out of the bookshelf and I would turn the pages, and there were drawings of how instruction how to draw the human body, both the female body and the male body, and I was very drawn to the male body. And there was one particular pose, this gorgeous sketch in black and white, charcoal probably, of a beautiful male body facing forward. And in those days in art books, the men usually had jocks on or a posing strap, or there was nothing there. And this was one of those books that had a little blank spot where the genitals should be. But it still just attracted me like crazy. Well, one day I got out my father's pen and ink, a style pen and India ink, and some tracing paper. I can't believe that at 4.5 I knew how to do this, and I started tracing that figure because I wanted it for myself. And I'm tracing, and then someone entered the front door, and I was filled with anxiety and tension, and I shut the book and shoved it back into the bookcase, and ink fell on the figure. And I closed the ink, I put everything back, and I put it back, and then I thought, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know anything about this. So fast forward 60 years later, my father has dementia and has asked me to help take care of him. I go to his home. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. I tried to keep up a relationship with my dad, and I saw that book in his bookcase. And that story came back, and I was talking to my dad saying, yeah, we'll get you into a senior living situation where you'll be more protected, and I'll take care of you. And I pretended like I was looking at all the books, and I said, I'd like to borrow a couple of these books. May I? And he said, oh, sure, go right ahead. And I picked 3 or 4 books and finally picked Drawing the Human Figure by Loomis. Got in the car, driving back to San Diego. He was in Oceanside. And it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's absolutely, wall-to-wall traffic. So I'm stopped dead, and I start flipping through the pages of the book on the passenger seat. And I'm flipping and flipping and flipping, and there it is. Concrete evidence that I knew that I was gay, that I was queer, that I was different, from the time I can remember, 4.5, 5 years old, because there was the black splotch of India ink on the page, and this gorgeous sketch of this man, peering through the black splotch. So I knew early on, and almost simultaneously, I began my musical studies. I started piano at the age of 4.5. Got a toy piano when I was 3 for Christmas, and just couldn't leave it alone. My father was a jazz musician, so there was a piano in the house. I was always trying to sit up at the piano and play, and so I started getting lessons at 4.5, and it was just something that I took to. As I look back on it, I think that was also the beginning of my spiritual journey, because now I intimately connect spirituality, my spirituality, with mindfulness. And if mindfulness is all about single focus, if mindfulness is about forgetting everything and getting immersed in what you're doing at the moment, and noticing the physicality of whatever it is, noticing what's happening in your body as you're playing the piano. Noticing the fingers going down at the right time and on the right note and all of that. It was an early experience of mindfulness. Now, I didn't identify it that way until, years later. But I really, truly believe that was the beginning of my spiritual journey, because when I practiced, I was single-minded, focused in what we would call an alpha state, I suppose, being creative, breathing deeply, moving with the music, being very body-centered. So I'd have to say that was the beginning of that. And I came from a Catholic family, had a very benign experience with church, with priests, with nuns. our nuns in Oceanside, where I grew up, were incredibly progressive for the time. This is the 50s. And they kept us very much in touch with what was going on with the anti-racist protests in the South, with Martin Luther King, later on with Chavez, who was working hard for the immigrants, the Chicano movement. There were those occasions of the ruler on somebody's hand or backside, but that didn't happen as much as other men relate to me. I was very lucky. And during that whole period, even now, I've never heard a report of any kind of child abuse or anything like that in our parish at that time. And so I was kind of drawn to a religious life. And another quick story, I'm probably going on and on way too long, but another quick story. I was a young teenager, maybe 13, 12, on the verge of puberty probably, playing a Chopin nocturne at the piano and trying to be focused. And my mother and my brother, my mother trying to raise two kids by herself, my mother and my brother were having a really tough day, argument. He was older than I was, so he was, in the midst of teenage angst. And they were fighting, and I'm trying to focus on what's going on the piano and the beauty of the music. And it just suddenly dawned on me, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could dedicate my life to God and to music? And the answer came, well, be a monk, join a monastery and be the music guy, be the music monk. And that eventually morphed into the priesthood, to being a diocesan priest. And I entered the seminary after high school and was ordained a priest and remained there for 16 years. Left 31 years ago. I can't believe it was that long ago that I left the priesthood in 1990. But from the time I was in the seminary and then through the time that I was, ordained and ministering, it was just a constant battle with my sexuality and with attempting to be my authentic self. It was extraordinarily difficult. I went through years of counseling. Some of that worked, some of it didn't. Eventually did. It was very, very helpful. I will always hold a very special place in my heart for a counselor who helped me in those last 5 years to finally make the decision to leave. But what made it especially difficult, as I look back now, is that the church, and I don't want to put church in capital C and focus only on the church that I served, because I think, broadly speaking, the Western church is very much the same when it comes to sex and sexuality, and particularly when it comes to homosexuality and the LGBTQIA community. Even though my experience of church was basically good and benign, that message of shame was always there. Masturbation is wrong. It's sinful. It's a mortal sin. Sex out of marriage is a mortal sin. Sex with somebody of your own sex is a mortal sin. It's just on and on and on. And I never had the sex talk. I don't know about you guys, if you grew up in the 50s, if you ever got a sex talk, but I would suspect not. That just didn't happen then. But what we did get in school was maybe one day a year when the girls we separated from the boys, and the boys would get a talk from the priest, and the girls would get a talk from one of the nuns, and they would talk about sex in very sort of, disembodied language. But one of the things that stuck with me was the euphemism they used for masturbation, and that euphemism was self-abuse. Is anyone familiar with that? Think about that. Think about that. I mean, it almost makes me want to burst into tears, that phrase, that euphemism for experiencing pleasure with your own body. And maybe that was the only thing that stuck with me and caused all those years of shame. And when your body and its natural desires is under a constant war with itself, you can't function. You certainly can't function as an authentic minister. And once I found myself as an ordained priest, it was a lost cause. It just, I was always very honest. I confessed my sins. I was very honest in the seminary. I said, I have these feelings. I have these desires. What do I do with them? And the answer was always, oh, don't worry about it. You have to be celibate just like everybody else. Don't, it'll come. Pray, etc., etc., etc. But then you're thrown into the environment of the seminary with men, exclusively with men from the ages of 18 to 26. What's going to happen? Right? And the shame that you experience in your own body closes that community off for you. And you feel safe in that community, and maybe it's okay to act out and explore erotically within that community, but always, with a sense of deep shame. So I would have to say that my spiritual journey has been a consistent journey away from shame and embracing my authentic self. Yeah. And that message came through to me loud and clear this morning. My morning meditation with the one tarot card that I pull every day. And thanks to you guys, because I'm taking tarot from you. But look what I pulled.
Ooh. Oh.
Now let me tell you, the moon to me was always such a mysterious card. And look at those crazy dogs, I guess a dog and a fox barking at the moon, and a lobster or some kind of a crustacean crawling out of the muck. And I always saw it as scary and mysterious. And then it dawned on me today, look at where I'm envisaging this image. I'm in the water. I'm the one who's in the water looking at this scene. I'm up to my tits in fluidity, cleansing, healing, initiation. And I'm looking back on the path that I've already taken. That's what this meant to me. I'm all teary now. Oh my God, I've been through all this stuff, and I've come to a point in my life where I can finally feel free to be my authentic self. And through that journey, I was called to be, in a way, a priest of Eros, a different kind of priest, through somatic sex education. Yes. That journey started with Joseph Kramer's School of Body Electric. I had to wait a long time until I took a basic weekend in Body Electric. But I finally had the opportunity to do that about 10 or 12 years ago. And it really opened my eyes to my desires and having a responsible spiritual relationship with my body through breath and body work. It was finally the opportunity in 2015 to take a weekend with Joseph himself. Finally meeting him after knowing about him, for years and years and years and years. He took us through a simple breath exercise. And I had this incredible vision and realized in the vision that this binary construct of body and soul simply does not exist. You cannot have a spiritual experience outside of your body. It's simply that we're not attuned to that anymore. We're so far removed from our innate spirituality, which is body-based, that we no longer know that it's even accessible to us until we happen to fall into one of these retreats or fall into a tantric workshop or fall into work with a sexological body worker or with someone like myself, a somatic sex educator, who understands that this is trauma-based work. And that I find that my work with gay men, for the most part, is working through the same shame that I went through, and trying to overcome that and be our authentic selves. Oh my God, I've said too much. That's What's your next question? and let me take a sip of coffee. Oh
Please
my
do.
God.
Yeah.
I'm on a roll.
You are. Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening. I really appreciate that.
So many stories, and just the little treasure trove of wisdom in those stories that you already offered us, but kind of tying your kind of launch into your calling into being an erotic embodied coach and healer. What do you think about us being a queer tribe? Do you see us as like indigenous people, like the Bardash or the, or the gatekeepers we talk about a lot in our community? But do you see us as tribe? And if so, talk about that.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. And I see it in every tribe in the world, right? Absolutely. That I don't know what else to call it except to use Raymond Rigoglioso's words, the gift to humanity, which is the gay tribe. I don't know if you know that book, Gay Men and the New Way Forward. Raymond Rigoglioso is just such a brilliant book, and I recommend it highly because it talks about many of the things that I have recognized my whole life, but I didn't have language for it. I even remember very deep conversations with fellow seminarians when I was studying to be a priest, because there was always a little coterie of gay men who came out to each other, and we were all sort of a sub-community within the community. And we would often talk about this very subject. Is there something distinctly different in humanity about the gay tribe? Now, we didn't call it the gay tribe then. We focused only on gay men and our own recognition of our gifts, and noticed so many gay men in healing, so many gay men in ministry, in the priesthood, and how good we were at it. How good we were at it. There was a natural inclination. And then later on, out of the priesthood, again, having this constant ongoing conversation, and only recently codified by this wonderful author, Rigoglioso, if I may, just these three categories what he calls gifts to humanity that the gay tribe brings. Number one, serving and healing. Number two, reinventing manhood. And number three, freeing and enriching the human spirit. And that just nails it for me. And I saw myself as I was reading through the various subcategories through those three. I won't go on and on about that, but I just thinking about serving and healing, I always was drawn to being a healer. Whether that meant as a priest or a minister, and I feel very much that the work I'm doing now is an extension of that. Yes. But healing as a musician as well. Yes. Because I've seen the healing power of music. Yeah. And healing musicians who come to me for coaching, mostly singers now. I used to teach piano, but I don't do that anymore. It's for the last 20 years, it's been pretty much working with singers, although my first job was the organist of the church in my hometown at the age of 15. So, I've been working with singers, I guess, for a really long time, almost 60 years. Mm-hmm. I think bringing an understanding to a singing musician that it involves the entire body and not just this, mm-hmm. or not just the respiratory diaphragm, but everything below that column of air has to involve the ass, the genitals, the perineum, and you can tell the difference when a singer is singing from their true core. Yeah. From their mula bandha, as they would call it in Tantra, from the depths of that grounded place that voice teachers are afraid to talk about because we don't talk about that in private in a studio, and then we come up with euphemisms for it. The first time I heard that, and it shocked me, was from a nun. She had gotten her master's in voice, and her teacher was an old Polish voice teacher, and he had no inhibitions whatsoever. And she's breathing from her diaphragm like everybody is taught to do, and he says, no, you're not breathing correctly. You have to breathe from your ass. And I'm sure this Franciscan nun, was like so shocked. But then, on reflection and on practice, this is absolutely true. And I can tell the difference. An opera expert, I can tell the difference when a singer, a professional singer, is only singing with half their voice. Then it might sound very good and very pretty, but when it opens up from the bottom, oh my God, it's a whole new voice, a whole new voice. So, that kind of healing as well, healing through teaching, has been very much a part of my life. Reinventing manhood, yeah, look at us. Yeah. We're queer. Come on, right? I've been comfortable with my feminine side for a long time. I'm trying to get more and more comfortable with her, with my inner vulva. Yeah. But she's there. Yeah. I've danced with her. I know she's there. And I think it's very important to seek that and to let that be authentically yours and not be afraid of it. I've been called a sissy and a faggot and a woman, and we all have. We all have that background. It's probably happened more in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up than with folks that are younger. But, the straight kids were just recognizing what was different about us. And what we were actually doing, perhaps totally unconsciously, was reinventing manhood and enriching and enhancing and freeing the human spirit. That's what my specific work as a somatic sex educator is all about.
Yeah.
Is freeing the human spirit for gay men to be able to be their authentic selves. My work now is very much based in reclaiming the symbols, the rituals, and the words of the Western Church for our erotic bodies.
Mm-hmm.
How can the Bible and the Church tell us that our bodies are sacred temples and at the same time tell us that we're disordered? What's disordered is that mindset, that soul set of the Western Church, which is just simply wrong.
Yeah.
How can I not see my mindful erotic practice, my special time of self-pleasure, is not sacramental? It involves all the things that sacrament is about. Intentional touch, anointing. We use lube, we use oil, right? And I use my entire body. Let's look at baptism. The ancient roots of baptism. The whole body was immersed in water, not just, a little part of the head, right? And words. I open my mouth and express my desire and my joy and my ecstasy when I'm enjoying my own body through self-pleasure. And I'll say, oh God. I'll say, this is my body. This is my body. Mm-hmm. What's happening right now? This ecstasy, this spiritual moment. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
my authentic erotic body.
Beautiful.
And I look forward to times when I can share that with another person, and there are those times when I can, and I just rejoice in that. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So important.
Mm. Thank you.
So yeah, queer tribe, yeah, I embrace that. I embrace that. We're all about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and then we'll open the line for a couple minutes just to see if anybody has comments or questions to close out our time. But with all this ministry, with all of those three things that you spoke of that Raymond talks about, and your own journey and the wisdom that you embody, what do you see for us as a queer tribe? What's your vision for us, especially in the days in which we're living? But speak your words of wisdom to us about what you see for us.
Can we take a breath first?
Please.
All of you, all of us together, just one beautiful, beautiful breath together. This is extraordinary. I thank you so much for this conversation. My vision, I think it's really simple. At the same time, it's never been more challenging, because I think we're struggling now with more condemnation and shame flinging than we've ever experienced in the history of the gay tribe. This is I don't want to be a Jeremiah here, but it's kind of a dangerous time, because as we come more fully out as a gay tribe. We are more threatening to the heteronormative patriarchy, and that's very threatening.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that the last few days has been fraught with anxiety for me, as this unfolding of a kind of second coming out occurs. I'm as honest as I can be, but Facebook is not a place for me to share this kind of stuff. So I embrace the opportunity to speak in this kind of a forum. And tomorrow, actually, I'm going to be on the Himeros.tv podcast. They don't actually they don't actually post the podcast till Friday, I don't think, but tomorrow is the recording.
Great.
So this is a great opportunity to sort of get these ideas out in front of you guys,
Yeah.
where I know I have a beautiful, welcoming community. But yeah, my vision is that through all of that shit, through all of that challenge and the difficulty that we're presented in contemporary political life in the United States of America specifically, that we actually become an instrument of healing for this country.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying anything new. It happens person to person. It happens one-on-one. It even happens within oneself. When you breathe deeply from your genitals and your heart, and open yourself up to the world, then, right? After an extraordinary mindful erotic practice, I may practice semen retention and just bring the energy through the rest of my body, take my shower, go out into the world, and you know what? People can tell the difference. People recognize that energy immediately. I've got time for a very, very quick story. As I said, I'm a lecturer at San Diego Opera. And I remember on a Sunday morning having my church and enjoying my body and retaining, right? Not finishing. And took my shower, dressed, and I had a lecture before the opera performance at the matinee that Sunday morning. So off I went. I drive to the theater and I park and I go up in the elevator and come out onto the plaza. And this had never happened before. It was really interesting. I was glowing with sexual energy. And I walked down the steps towards the theater and people came up to me and touched me. People came up to me and said, "How are you? Tell us about what's going on." And wanting to hug me and touch me and ask about my life. And I usually just sort of like walk through, the crowd and wave and, go into the theater and get ready for my, get my thoughts together. There was no way I was going to get my thoughts together this time. Everybody wanted to come in, and it was that beautiful, divine, erotic energy that we all have access to.
Yes.
It is absolutely spiritual. It is absolutely natural.
Great.
And that's what we need to practice. And I think that's what's going to heal not only us, but the world that comes in contact with us.
Great. Wow. Delicious. Thank you so much. Thank you. So now's our time, and we've just got a couple of minutes. But if somebody's got a burning, if somebody has a burning question or comment, please raise your hand and just unmute yourself and address Nic.
Or go ahead and unmute yourself. I may not see your hand. Just,
yeah. Okay.
Forgive our little limited vision here, but yeah, just unmute yourself when you're ready. Go ahead.
I think they're all mesmerized.
Yes. Oh, here we go. Noel.
Hi. Thank you for...
And this is Noel.
Noel, yes.
Noel. Yeah.
Thank you for your time and your wisdom. and sharing here. My question is to you is, I'm just wondering, did you have any like from this story that you just told me? I've experienced that myself in that energy of divinity, is as you said, and that energy is just so healing, not only from the standpoint of a person experiencing it, but for also the people that come towards you. And I'm just curious, does that only happen just once in a person's life, or does it happen many times? So thank you.
Thank you for the question. And it happens all the time. Once you, I really believe, once you connect with that in your own body, it doesn't go away. Whether you're conscious of it or not, it doesn't go away. And whether you're conscious of it or not, it doesn't matter, really, in the long run. I mean, I think it's wonderful to be conscious of it and to cultivate that kind of divine but natural energy. But I notice now that I practice it more often in my life, not as often as I should and as I would like to. But, you know, when I go to the grocery store and I meet the cashier and there's this outpouring of humanity and love to this person that like comes from I don't know where. It's like I was never like that before. You know, these are just people that are, you know, in line. And now and I think the pandemic actually improved that, made it even richer, because I understood that if I had a mask on, all they can see are my eyes. And you can see that divine energy through your eyes if it's there. And it's there. And people responded to the energy. It was so lovely. So yeah, I practice it more and more now, but particularly with people in a serving capacity, a cashier or a waiter, you know, the bank teller, and have these wonderful little human moments. And I absolutely believe that, at least for me, that it comes from that practice, that erotic practice, and building that energy within my own body. Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Noah, for the question.
You're welcome. Yeah, so great question.
Last question before we close our wisdom time with Nic. Anybody have a comment or a question before we close our time?
I'm breathing easier now.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad we prepped you for your Himeros thing tomorrow.
Yes.
So maybe in closing then, are there ways in which, like the work that you're doing tomorrow, do you want to plug anything in closing?
Yeah. Himeros.tv. That's HIMEROS.tv. I helped co-create a series of videos, erotic videos for them, for Davey Wavy, on this very subject, on the connection between religion, spirituality, and gay sex. And they created a documentary that is now on YouTube. The best way to search for it is through its title, and the title makes me cringe. Priest becomes gay sex coach. And I'm not a priest, I'm a former priest, but they got that right in the Instagram feed. But anyway, you can search YouTube for that and find that documentary and watch it. And my website is mindfulpleasurepractice.com.
Excellent.
Mindfulpleasurepractice, one word, .com.
Great.
And you can always get a hold of me there.
Great. Well, Nic, it's been a pleasure, a delight to hear and to feel your journey and sharing it. We love you. We support you. We send our blessings to you. So thank you. And thank you to all of you who are on the call and who
Thank
may
you.
be watching the call from around the world once we send it out in a few days. So, all right, we bid you adieu, everyone, and namaste.
Thank you all so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Have a blessed day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.